Hi everyone, I'm Nitrovsky, Nitro for short. Hope you'll enjoy this.
So you've worked on quite a few different Spyro projects. Spyro 3 any percent, 117%. I think a little bit of Spyro 1 as well.
Yeah, I started TASing like 8 years ago. First
Wow.
project was Spyro 3, 117%. Then I had this project that you're going to see right here, co-authored with Lapogne36, the Spyro 3 any percent TAS. Hello, Lapogne.
Oh, he's in the chat as well. Awesome. So if you guys have ever played any games in the Spyro trilogy, the second and third games are very different from the first. In fact, it's not even really worth bringing up the differences because there are just so many with the movement and kind of the options that you don't have in the first one. In the second one, we end up unlocking abilities. Those are already unlocked in the third game. That's going to be our climb, our head bash, and our swim. So we already have those unlocked.
Correct.
One big difference is going to be that in Spyro 2, there's a double jump glitch. It doesn't really make you jump twice, but you get the height as if you did jump twice. That's not going to be present in Spyro 3, so we're not going to be able to get around the barriers with that. But I'm sure there's plenty of other methods for us to get around these barriers.
Oh, of course, you're going to have plenty of opportunity to question what happened whenever Spyro gets a lot more height than he should.
And the only other thing I can think about is that there are some bonus characters. They are not optional. We do have to play as them.
There's Sheila the kangaroo, Surgeon Bird, the penguin, and Bentley the Yeti.
Yep.
There's also technically Agent 9, but that one we can skip because we don't do any levels in the last hub.
Here we are, Spyro 3 any percent. That beautiful PS1 start screen that we all know and love.
The first thing worth noting is that you can actually skip the main menu here quickly enough that it just fails to boot up the music system of the game.
Wow.
And for entertainment purposes here, we actually wait like I think 10 or 15 frames, something like that, so that we can have music throughout the game. Another thing that's worth noting is this is run on the very first version release of the game, what we call Black Label. There was eventually a greatest hits version that was released. Changes a few very small things, but that amounts to about like 20 to 25 seconds throughout this run.
What?
So first of all, what you're going to see is we don't really go through the level in the order that we'd expect. We start right off with what we call a Sproder Man, which is a combination of the patched double jump mechanic in Spyro 2 with wall glides, which allows you to raise the height cap from glides and then flop onto the wall. And right after that, you saw a swim in air.
Yeah, okay. That's ridiculous.
Here's the first instance of a proxy, second instance of a proxy.
Huge proxy.
Right out of bounds to get another swim in air and go directly to the end of the level. With a straight line. So to back up a little bit, what is a proxy? A proxy is essentially abusing the characteristic of the game that certain state transitions actually make you maintain speed. You combine that with the fact that you can be ejected outside of certain hitboxes, either by crossing wall boundaries, etc., or essentially moving inside an enemy or where an enemy is going to be, and then causing the state transition at that point to maintain a lot of speed, usually used to maintain vertical speed in RTA speedruns, but in a TAS, we can use it in many, many more situations to maintain, for instances, horizontal speed, which will just get us to the end point earlier.
And then now we're like flying underneath portals just to completely skip the requirements to actually access them.
Correct. I guess that's another thing that we need to mention. Whenever a level is locked in this game, the portal is actually loaded. It's just stored exactly under its intended location, but out of bounds. So usually you wouldn't be able to enter it, but since we have the ability to go out of bounds, swim in air, glide on the map, etc., we can, in fact, enter all of the levels early in the first 3 homeworld, which is very convenient. Unfortunately, that's not possible in the fourth homeworld. Fortunately, we don't need to enter any level in the fourth homeworld. Well, go faster. Here's another proxy.
What?
This time.
I didn't even know you could do that off that enemy. That's crazy.
Yeah, this time an animation proxy. There's a specific frame in that animation where the hitbox just moves in just the right way that we can actually be in that position before and then ejected from that position the frame after, again, maintaining that speed. Yeah, that's another instance of the Sproder Man.
And we're heading into Sheila. We're gonna be slowing things down a bit, I think.
Slowing things down as far as tricks go, but there is still a lot to mention here. This level is all about manipulating the RNG. Essentially, every movement that you see for the Rhinox, the Buffaloes, etc., those are all RNG. And even the number of Rhinox that you have to kill in that area is RNG because it depends on where they spawn, where they are set to spawn, because which hut every Rhinox is supposed to spawn in is set at the very start of the level.
That was so quick. That was just, it's literally perfect. They're all so close to you. You can get so many double hits out.
Yet it's not perfect. We've had to make sacrifices because we've had to TAS this level several times, retest it, and this is, as far as I know, not the fastest version of that level we've ever done, but it's the fastest we could get with that RNG siege. Shouldn't be a thing, but it is. And we are already out of the first homeworld. We just need to defeat Buzz here, which one thing that you must know about this game is that if something is not on screen, it's not happening. So what you're going to see is 2 of those hits. I'm actually going to turn the camera somewhat away from Buzz. That's to prevent him from raising his firewall and essentially allows me to hit him quicker. I'm also going to take a few damage on the lava here.
Wow.
So that I can hit him just a few frames earlier every time. So that was one of the instances
and
where
then you
I
get
turned the camera. This is another one. Yeah, you get the sheep to get another one of those damage boosts. Essentially, you get essentially 4 hits of time save from this by getting the sheep.
What? And he dies, respawns, and what? That was ridiculous.
A little camera manipulation to reduce lag by a couple frames, triggering the load screen slightly earlier. And we are on to second homeworld. So we're going to start this homeworld with a swim in air into Haunted Towers. Haunted Towers is a level that you can normally unlock without any egg requirement, but it requires you to talk to Hunter or get a fireball, get something to hit a target above the portal, but we don't care about that. It's faster for us to go out of bounds with a swim in air and enter it with what we call bridge swim, which is essentially one of the few actual clips that you can find in this game. Another instance of a clip that you can find in this game that we combine with a proxy is this here. Jackhammer goes straight through the wall.
You're gonna jump over everything. I didn't know. You're already at the end of the level.
Next, we are on our way to Bamboo Terrace. We also will use proxies to go directly from the start of the level to the end. This time, one proxy specifically to allow us to do the skip, one for height, and then the next couple proxies in that level are just going to be to maintain a little bit of speed. One thing that happened earlier that I couldn't point out because we were talking about other things is what we call a ground trigger jump. If you jump and glide as quickly as possible when entering a trigger box, like right here, you're actually able to move out, and if you glide right over the normal intended stop point, you move to a position that is outside of the trigger for the next step in the whole dialogue sequence. And in this case, that skips something like a 12-second cutscene or something like that.
I honestly didn't even notice it. Like, good thing you pointed that out.
Here we got out of bounds, directly into Spooky Swamp, requires a cheeky head bash right there to get enough height. Here, again, we're going to be using a proxy to go directly to the end of the level, with a little bit of a camera manipulation right there to save 2 frames by completely changing the cycle of the and double character, the one that gives you the egg. And next, in order to enter Surgeon Burr's base, we are going to need to go out of bounds. We are going to achieve that by using the head bash crate that's right to the left right here. We can actually abuse some of the weird collision on that to get another proxy directly out of bounds. This level is essentially an escort mission where the character that you're escorting has a set path and certain checkpoints and stop points. So if a checkpoint is not met, the character is going to move to a stop point, go to a complete stop, and then check the checkpoint again. So the way that we can optimize this level as much as possible is by making sure that we hit all of the checkpoints before the point where the character here, which she's called Gabrielle, before the point where she is going to check for that checkpoint. Checkpoints are essentially just killing characters, destroying the door, etc. So you saw me, maybe it was probably not noticeable by someone that didn't know what to expect, but I essentially delayed some of the hits so that I could get Gabrielle to start moving later. But that actually saves time because I'm able to clear another checkpoint at a later point early enough that she doesn't have to go to her stop point, make a full stop, and check for the checkpoint again. This here is the last level of this homeworld. This one is a thing.
We're not just gliding to the end?
If one of the cannonballs explodes without touching anything, it explodes around where Sparks is. This wall actually moves inside the mountain when it's destroyed. And when it does, we can use that to conserve that speed with one of the state transitions I mentioned earlier, and then use a charge to redirect that speed directly forward really quickly and go directly to the end of the end of level.
That was mental. That was ridiculous.
This is the most speed we've been able to achieve in this game, the most horizontal speed. Like it allows you to go directly from the beginning of the level to the opposite of the level. Like there's an egg on an island at the very opposite end of the level. You managed to go from that point to that point in like 12 frames, something like that. It's ridiculous. Here in this boss fight, we made sure to take a little bit of damage because we are going to need to death abuse, more specifically trigger a zombie glitch early on in the next homeworld in order to save time. In fact, we are going to trigger that zombie glitch twice. That zombie glitch can be triggered specifically by exiting a level, exiting a side area, exactly on the frame that you would have died. It cancels the death sequence and allows you to move into the homeworld while being zombie. What this has for an effect is that in the homeworld specifically, when you die, when you are considered dead by the game, water surfaces don't work. And thankfully in this homeworld, what happens is that you spawn underwater. So you spawn swimming, water surfaces don't work, so you can just swim right outside through the water surface and keep the swim state, which essentially is what we call a swim in air, and that is going to be used to enter the last level of this homeworld. In the meantime, what we have here, that little movement there was to trigger that animation that you saw right in front of us, essentially just to be able to proxy off of the belly of that wrestled Rhinoc to go to the end of the level as quickly as possible. Normally, we would exit the level immediately, but this time we actually want to get the zombie glitch, not for the swim in air I mentioned earlier, but for another time save that the zombie glitch enables, and that is in Lost Fleet, which is going to be coming up right now. Essentially, the acid surfaces also don't work when you are considered dead, which allows us to go into an acid pool which has a very specific kind of collision shape that allows us to get a really quick proxy into a clip directly to the last section of the level. Essentially right here, proxy into clip to the last section, get zapped by Zoe, die. That triggers the end of level character to spawn right behind you, where like right there, whereas normally you would have needed to escort him throughout the level. We're taking more damage here because we need to trigger the zombie glitch again. Zombie glitch does not carry through death, obviously. So taking damage on the crab, and this time we're going to use that to get into, I think, Bentley's outpost. Yes.
So now when we swim out here, we're still swimming because
we're still swimming.
I don't know, we can just like conserve states because the game thinks Spyro's dead, but he is not.
Going into Bentley's outpost, normally that is another escort level, and unfortunately this one we can't shortcut like we did Lost Fleet. But what we can do is, you know, go fast. Normally Bentley is a very slow character, but thanks to the zombie glitch, we actually have the ability to control when the game is going to teleport Bartholomew, the character that we're escorting right here, to the specified sequence spots. Like right now, we teleported Bartholomew under Bentley so that we could jump on that frame, abuse that speed, go directly to the end with more speed, allowing us to go to this point faster. Another proxy right here to go to that gong, activate the gong so that we don't need to wait for Bartholomew to ever throw snowballs at us, which is the normally intended way to get those gongs. Another proxy here, and that clears the level really
How did
quickly.
that proxy work? You just did it off the box, or?
That proxy was another one of those Bartholomew teleport proxies.
Oh,
we controlled
okay.
when Bartholomew was going to teleport, moved exactly over where Bartholomew was going to teleport at that moment, and then used that to get a proxy to, go fast, which is not a characteristic that Bentley usually has. And a final cheeky proxy at the end, because why not? It saves time.
It's clean.
So at this point, we still have the zombie glitch, which is relevant. You'll see that the characteristic of swimming being kept through water surfaces also has the double-sided edge that if you spawn not swimming, you will also stay not swimming underwater. But thankfully, that does not prevent us from entering frozen altars with a spin jump. Essentially, the game has perfect sideways acceleration in the air, and we use that to lift ourselves up on surfaces that are normally too high to reach.
And
another proxy right there,
level's
followed
over.
by a dialogue a dialogue trigger jump thing that moves us directly over where the portal is going to spawn, which allows us to exit the level during the cutscene, which normally is not possible. On top of the fact that we are still zombie, which means at this point exiting a level through the level portal is actually the only way to exit a level. So that was just
that was so optimal. Like that was beautiful, honestly. Like that's just so smart to do. Wow.
And now, final actual level of this TAS. After this, it's only going to be boss fights. Charm Bridge. We are actually just going to use proxies again to go directly from the start to the end. One proxy right here to go up quickly, and then another one.
Use your body real quick.
Uses a very special kind of state transition. Essentially, transition from any aerial transition to grounded, which allowed us to actually use the level boundaries, levels, scenery, shape, geometry as a ramp to go directly to the end much faster than you could have with normal kinds of proxies. And now, thankfully, this last level actually strips you of zombie at the end, so we are not zombie anymore. That will be relevant. Will that be relevant? I don't think it makes much of a difference, other than the fact that we can now have sparks again, which we don't need for this fight, but we will need for the final boss fight. Now, I didn't mention that yet, but Sparks is your Firefly companion, which is normally used to pick up gems, but it also is your health indicator. So right now we are what we call Sparksless. We are one hit away from death. Doesn't matter, we won't get hit. The other levels are green, blue, and yellow in that order for, weakest to strongest. The final boss fight, in order to be optimal, requires us to be at blue sparks or better. Otherwise, there's going to be some... Otherwise, essentially the helper for that fight would try to drop you some fodder for you to replenish health instead of trying to drop weapons. We obviously want to drop weapons because we're trying to go fast. Now, how do we get to the final boss without having the required egg count? Turns out that right by Desert Ruins here, there's that helmet and that special kind of geometry under the helmet that allows us to get a backwards proxy, ramp off of the mountain, and it turns out that the final boss load trigger bleeds out above the mountain, so we can enter it from just above the mountain like that. And now this is the final boss fight. Yeah.
Jeez.
Normally, you would need to step into cannons and use the cannons to damage the sorceress, but that takes a while because you need to wait for Agent 9 to go across around the arena, like
no, trust me, you can't do this.
3/4 of a turn or something like that. What we do instead is we get the sorceress off screen. By the way, time in like 1 second. Time.
Okay, I paused into but yeah, whatever.
So what we did is we got the sorceress off screen, which does not unload the sorceress herself, but it does unload her wand. And when the sorceress does her fireball attack, it goes out of the wand in the angle of that wand where the wand is at that moment, no matter where the wand is. So we got the wand in a position where it would be angled right behind the sorceress towards the ground, because the fireballs don't hit the sorceress herself, they go right through the sorceress. But if the fireball hits the ground near the sorceress, the blast radius is going to affect the sorceress. So angle the wand in just the right way by unloading it at the right time, and then go into a position where the sorceress would shoot the fireballs in the right direction towards the ground so that it would hit her, skip the full first phase doing that, which, you know, normally would take a long time to wait for Agent 9 and then get on the cannon and then wait for Agent 9 for the next phase, which is tanks. But another thing that we didn't really get a chance to see is the fact that there is normally a third phase to that fight, which is UFOs, which we also skipped by essentially spawning a tank only at the only after we reach the third phase, which doesn't despawn the tanks. It's really hard to explain in just the short amount of time.
I honestly think that that does make sense. Like you just kept the tank. You did so much damage. You're already in the third phase. You still had the tank, and then you just finish it from there. You don't even need it. You just don't need it. That was unbelievable. So many moments in there are just the small time saves where you're just using even more proxies that are just, I mean, they are necessary, but also completely just ridiculous to save all of the extra frames. Even just the camera manipulations to save 2 frames here, a couple frames there, are really, really interesting to see. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Speedrun Saturdays. If you did, be sure to leave a like, as that's the best way to show support. If you're interested in checking out the show live, we stream it every single Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the dot on these platforms. I'd also like to give a special thanks to all the people that were involved with the production of the show. This is a huge team effort, and thank you guys so much for helping out. And also a big thanks to our Patreon supporters. Your support goes a long way, and we really couldn't do the show without you guys. There's a ton of work that goes on behind the scenes to create each episode, and backing us on Patreon is the best way to help us out with that. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for today's episode. Leave all feedback in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe for more speedrun-related content. I hope you all have a beautiful life. Thank you so much.